Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Bret. I'm going to be here with you for at least the next hour, and we're going to talk about a bunch of my favorite stuff today with a friend of mine. So before we get to the show, I just want to say hi to everybody out there. Like if you're watching live on YouTube, thank you for being there. Thank you for showing up. So how this works is when we're live, you get to ask questions, and hopefully we have answers. So we're going to be talking specifically about continuous integration, continuous deployment, continuous delivery, GitOps, all the things between your code and servers, like that whole segment. And we're specifically going to be talking about Argo, so we'll get to that. But get those questions in early. Get the questions that you have around CI/CD and what is GitOps. I mean, if you have those questions, throw those in the chat. And then we're going to start working on them later. We might even get into some demos. You never know. So a little bit of housekeeping as well on how this show works. Hey, there's Viktor there, by the way. he's showing up in the corner. So just real quick before we get to the main part of the show, I wanted to talk about how the show works. It's sponsored by my Patreon page, so please go over to Patreon and become one of my members if you want to support this content. If you want to see this content still show up in whether it's in the podcast format or this format in live, or all of the open source repos and tools I provide, you name it. There's a bunch of stuff out there. By the way, you don't have to pay. You can just scroll down and click the follow button here. It's my favorite button because it gets rid of all the social media BS and allows you to just get updates from me on what I'm creating or updating. So it's none of the fluff. It's none of the showing other people's links. It's really just about what am I doing and that you might be interested in. And so you might get 1 or 2 posts a week, and you can do that by clicking the follow button. If you want to give me a coffee, buy me a coffee every month, and get access to some exclusive benefits, go ahead and click the join buttons. We have the new Discord server up in case it's early preview for those of you that are in members. Basically, if you're patrons, you get the new Discord chats plus exclusive channels there, but we'll talk more about that at a later time. Anyway, I want to make it official that this show is not about my Patreon, but it's actually about my friend Viktor, who's all the way from the other side of the pond. And so Viktor is a principal DevOps architect, which makes it sound like he's better than DevOps, which he totally is. And let me just give you some credentials on his background, because he's not just a Docker captain. We met that way, right? We met as Docker captains.
Yeah, that's captains.
So Viktor Farcic you're in Spain, right? Barcelona?
Yes, in Barcelona.
Yeah.
Barcelona
Yes.
it is.
So I don't know if we got any Spaniards on the YouTube Live. I normally have a few out there, so if you're out there, give them a shout out. So Viktor has been doing all sorts of stuff. Now, not only does he write a bunch of books that are all about DevOps and continuous integration and all those things, and he also has a YouTube channel that you should check out. We're gonna show that off in a minute. But he's let's see, he works at CodeFresh, so he's a DevOps architect there, a principal DevOps architect. He is a member of the Google Developer Experts Program, which cool, but that's not enough, because he's also on Continuous Delivery Foundation Ambassadors. And like I mentioned, he's got a bunch of books, of which he did have me in one of those. I was very lucky to be a part of one of those books, and that was a fun time. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you for having me.
I just have to compliment you on your setup there. You've got some nice new hardware that I like. You got the lights. We're almost matching in our lights today. We're orangish red.
Exactly. See, we're synchronized.
Yeah, and I don't think can we see it this way? Yeah, I don't think we can see it. You actually have a poster from Fight Club over there on the wall. On the other side, those are your books on one side, but you don't have to move it.
That's on the other side.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know how to change the camera.
That's okay.
Oh my God, complicated. Anyway, it's somewhere there.
So, what was her name? Margie or Marcy?
Marva.
Yes.
Marva, I think. Yeah.
I love that movie, man. That's such a great movie. So to see that, you're gonna have to go over to YouTube. So over here on YouTube, he has a YouTube channel called the DevOps Toolkit series. Yeah. Biker points out it's also after 5 p.m. in Barcelona, so he's having a beer.
I'm glad that you think that I'm having a beer because it's after 5. Thank you for having faith in me.
Yeah, personally, if it's after noon, I'm fine with a beer because I work from home. And yeah. So you got Eric saying cheers. Tarragona, Spain. Someone from Tarragona.
Hey, yeah, that's actually I have a summer house next to Tarragona in Cambrils, so I'm your neighbor, Santiago.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. I knew we'd have somebody. I had a feeling. Somebody at least from there originally, if not there currently. So let's see. Let's look at all this stuff. Let's back up a second. Let's go through some announcements. So you heard me talk about this last week, and I've several weeks now. Every year for October, DigitalOcean has Oktoberfest, and I'm a big fan because one, it promotes open source, and it's designed to help you get involved with helping open source, which means doing something like changing. You don't have to be a developer, by the way. My first PRs, which are the pull requests that you do in GitHub typically, that's how you change code in open source usually now. And I started by just editing READMEs. So all you have to know is some basic text and maybe a little Markdown, which is a text formatting language. So that's it. And then it teaches you, a lot of this stuff here teaches you how to use Git in open source, maybe how to open a pull request to maybe get some feedback. It's a really great process, and I highly recommend you do it. Even if you don't think you're an expert on something, you probably use something in open source that's probably stored on GitHub or one of the other ones, but this is really focused on GitHub. And I bet you've found at least a spelling error or a grammar check or something, and you can do those as part of Oktoberfest and get a free t-shirt. I think they're giving away 75,000 t-shirts, which is insane.
It is really insane number.
If you delivered 75,000 t-shirts to my house, could I fit them in my house? That's a lot.
Bret, you have a house. I have an apartment. So you're better equipped than I am.
So, well, you've been to a lot of vendor booths at conferences. How many t-shirts are normally shipped? Like, is there a number that you can think? Like, do they ship 500 like, how many t-shirts can you think of that you've seen in the real world at one time?
Let's say at KubeCon, when we were sponsoring, we would bring, I don't know, 5,000.
Okay. And is that a room? Is that a room full of boxes?
Oh yeah, that's a storage space of a conference where you just keep coming with more and more boxes to the booth.
Yeah, 5,000. Even to me, 5,000 is hard to imagine. I mean, I think I have a lot, and I probably have 100 t-shirts in the house, but I can't fit them in drawers because they're all conference t-shirts, and so they're stuck in boxes too. But
my wife forced me to find that. She said that, hey, all your t-shirts are walking commercials. You don't have a single t-shirt that is not a commercial, right? I said that's not true. And here she made a bet: find me one, and you can keep them. If you don't find one, you need to throw them away. I was left shirtless.
Yes. Well, and I think that t-shirt is an advertisement for being a retro gamer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which I'm also a fan of. In fact, I think actually, I think I'm kind of missing stuff from my back wall. I was looking over my shoulder real quick and realizing I don't think I have any gamer stuff, and that's a shame because I've always got my favorite game. I've always got some game. I'm pushing buttons. I don't know what I'm doing.
Let me give you a recommendation. Buy Pandora Box. That's a life changer. Like, I don't know, 10,000 games, something like that. All the retro games you ever will need in your life, you ever played in your life are there. It's amazing.
Is it like a RetroPie? Because I have a RetroPie.
No, it's kind of like imagine the top of the arcade with joysticks and everything.
Okay.
So it's like that, right? It's a box.
Oh, it's the hardware.
It has the top of the arcade, right? So you get the joysticks and everything, and you just plug it into your television.
Oh, okay. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to look this up. This is a new hobby now. Because this year one of my projects I took a new Raspberry Pi 4 and I turned it into a RetroPie, and now I have 40,000 games. Um, and I've been going through some of the classics like Gauntlet, and I think I went through Super Metroid and beat the whole thing again to feel like a kid.
Ghosts and Goblins.
Ghosts and Goblins, that's a great one,
Okay, I
but
was
it's
about
hard.
to. I thought that you're
It's
gonna
hard.
say I had never played that, and then I would leave this show.
No, I've played that this year. I've played that game because you start out with you get the chain the plate mail, and you have the javelin, right, and the fire. It's hard. That's a hard game, but
All
yeah,
all arcade games are hard because you're not supposed to be playing more than a
right.
few minutes.
Yeah, you don't have that much money, and you're never supposed to win because how could they ever get your quarters if you won? Like, yeah, Ghosts and Goblins. That's a great one. That was like a precursor to Castlevania, which is another great one. But
Yep.
all right, so next up in the news, good segue on gaming. We need to have a whole show just about retro gaming. HashiConf. I mentioned this last week, by the way. HashiConf is in a couple of weeks now. It's this month since we're on October 1st, and it's virtual like everything. And it's free. At least it is. The workshops, in case you care about workshops, there are paid workshops. But if you just want to attend the sessions and the stuff, I think it's free. It looks like all of their workshops are sold out, so the only thing left to buy is the free ticket for the conference. Supposedly, they're going to announce a new product, at least one, which they don't do often because they're like a 5 or 6 product company. But Kelsey Hightower predicted, this is the tweet of the week, which I've been doing lately. He predicted that it's a CI/CD tool that uses HCL, which I feel like he's trolling a little bit, but I don't really. I know he's a big fan, so I know he's not trying to be a jerk. But that's I'm not sure I'm an HCL fan at this point. But anyway, that was the tweet of the week there. All right, so let's talk about what you got. You got real quick your website, Technology Conversations. I'm going to put that out there. I'm gonna. I already threw out your YouTube. You can get Viktor on Twitter, all the places.
Twitter, yeah. Google me. I don't know. You'll find
Yeah,
me.
yeah. He's got a bunch of books. They're all focused on DevOps, so I highly recommend them. And he keeps releasing new ones, and it's like a new version each time, and I like it. So he has
Not
this great YouTube
anymore.
channel. Oh, you're not doing that
Not
anymore?
anymore. No, now I have a new concept. Now it's kind of like a never-ending catalog encyclopedia, where I just keep stuffing stuff I like. Kind of, it's like a garbage can, right? Kind of, oh, I
Yeah,
played with this. Let me put it inside, right?
yeah. Well, that's what you're doing on your YouTube channel too. Is on the YouTube channel you had a video recently where you played with Octant and didn't have a lot of positive things to say about it.
No,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
so the thing is that, and I consider myself fortunate that people allow me to do that, but I like giving kind of like really kind of, this is what I really think. There is no fuss and no kind of political correctness and whatever. I tried it, I used it, I don't like it. That's it.
yeah. I mean, first impressions matter, right? Like, we've got we're usually not lacking for tooling, so it is a tough thing. And I think that a lot of open sources like this, UI design, UX are often like the last things, if ever, to be put into a project. So, it's a challenge, and I don't disagree with a lot of your. I'm always looking at it like I have the dashboard, the official Kubernetes dashboard. How is this better? So I liked how you approached it from the same method of like, why would I consider this? But yeah, they've actually been on the show this year. So if you want to know more about Octant and maybe see what features it has, they were on the show earlier this year. But it's a VMware sponsored project, so I'm assuming at some point it's going to tie into other things that they're doing that will sort of bring some more power out of it. But I haven't seen that yet. But anyway, all right, what else? All right, so let's get to the topic at hand, which I think got some people excited in chat recently. I got some retweets on it that people were interested in this GitOps stuff, and specifically in Argo, because we've had Weave on the show in the last year talking about Flux, and Argo is, I wouldn't say it's a competitor. They do have similar functionality, but they differ in the way they're implemented and the scope of their features. So I'm not going to say they're competitors. In fact, they now seem to be friends because they're collaborating on this GitOps engine thing, and they're merging a lot of their open source. So
You're not following the news, and then
I'm not.
they
Oh, there's
stopped.
more.
And then they stopped.
There's
So
what?
they got married, and then they got divorced.
Oh, they had a falling out. Just
Yeah,
just the drama of open source.
exactly. But I mean, they're not competitors because both are really open source. Especially Argo. Argo has one of the things I like about Argo is that, or dislike, I'm not sure yet, is that there is no really financial interest behind it. It's more like a prestige because it's really a bank, financial institution behind it, right? Kind of, they're not going to earn
Okay.
money from it. But anyways, it is not a competitor, but it serves similar goals. So let's put it that way. That's probably nicer
Right.
to say than competitors.
Yeah, and that is a good point. And I'm not trying to. I mean, we're not here to bash on people, but there is a constant challenge that I have because I love a lot of tools that have paid versions, and the open, like the free version is the limited version, like Traffic, right? I'm technically a Traffic ambassador, but that's one of the challenges they have, and then one of the challenges I have as a user is, as open source continues to mature, their free product that's open source is fantastic, but there are things I wanted to do that they will probably never put in it, and they'll probably never accept a PR because it's in their paid version. So I know that Weave provides a cloud and that the GitOps stuff is a part of it. So I'm sure that they struggle with that challenge too of, we still got to make money, but we also love open source. It's not like these people are, there's not a lot of projects out there that purely make open source just so that they could get you to pay, buy the product. And you can kind of tell when you see those two because they usually are crappy open source products. I would not classify Weave as one of those, but since we've had GitOps and Flux on the show, do you want to back up a second? Like, what's the architecture of Argo? And it looks like there's multiple projects, right? So we're specifically talking about one project?
Yeah, so in this case, I think we are, and we might not, we're talking about Argo CD.
Yeah.
And to begin with, it's a very unfortunate name. In my head, the way how I think about continuous delivery, this is not continuous delivery. So let me get that out right away, right? That does not mean that it's not a good tool. It's a great tool. I love it. It's one of my favorites, but it's not continuous delivery. Anyways, it's relatively simple in what it does. And what it does is that you have an agent in your cluster that listens or polls periodically your Git repositories and makes sure that the desired state defined in your Git repositories is the same as the actual state, which is your cluster. If there is a drift between the two, it will do certain actions to make sure that your actual state is the same as the desired state. So it polls manifests from Git repositories and applies them to the cluster if there is a drift between the two states.
Okay.
When I say it's simple, it sounds like, oh, this is a simple. I mean, there's a lot of complexity how to do all that, right? But at least from user perspective, it's a relatively simple and straightforward tool.
Yeah, and so real quick before we actually get into all the tools, it looks like they have workflows, CD, rollouts, and events. And
yes,
these all could probably be one project or one product, but in open source world, we like things that are smaller.
exactly. That's one of the things I like about it. It's different components that are very specialized in what they do, relatively small and potentially doing a very good job within a limited scope, then it's up to you to combine them. I see many cases where people would use, let's say, Argo CD with a different tool for events or for pipelines.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. Once you choose to use huge something, kind of like in the era of many years ago that we had with, I'm not going to name, right? Then you're kind of locked.
Yeah.
I see
Yeah.
it as a puzzle box, right? Your system is a puzzle, and then you need to figure out which pieces you're going to put in.
Yeah, and that's that's probably could be the better name for this show is the DevOps puzzle box because everybody. I mean, I'm on, I don't know, 5 different projects a year maybe. This year is a little higher than normal for some reason, and there no two companies do anything the same. Like between their code getting committed and their code running on a server, that stuff is different on every one of those customers. Like it might be a different CI tool. They might decide to do it, deployments based on images. They might decide to do deployments based on Git commits. Like there's just so many variations there that it's hard. It's hard because people show up at this show and they ask questions and they're always wanting that one way. Like, what's the way? And if you're a fan of Star Wars, this is the way. Season 2 coming too soon. The Mandalorian. I don't know if you've seen that or you have Disney Plus. Okay. Season 2 is coming soon. But real quick, before we get into CD, I want to throw people a bone a little bit, at least on Argo, so that they can understand. It looks like Argo Workflows is the CI tool for testing and more of the traditional creating a workflow around a bunch of different pipeline goals. It looks like CD is all about the delivery or the deployment and that process in a modern GitOps way. It looks like rollouts is specifically for Kubernetes and is a more advanced way to do rollouts instead of a rolling update, which is what when we all start out with Kubernetes, we start out with rolling updates. And that's one way to do it, but there's all these other ones like Canary and Blue-Green. And it looks like this is a new controller that provides, I'm sure, some new CRDs. And what I really liked about it is they highlighted for me, because I just read this a couple of weeks ago, but they highlighted for me the reasons why you might want to get away from the rolling update standard out-of-the-box deployment strategy of Kubernetes. Not that it's bad, because I know tons of people that use it, but there are reasons to evolve beyond that to something more advanced, which there's lots of choices. And I love this little list of 5 things because it's now, like, this is the kind of list that I will tell clients as a consultant and make myself sound smart. It's a pretty great little list. So for people out there, check out if you're looking at more advanced stuff, then this is something like that. And then the last one there was events, which I don't really get. I mean, I know what events, the idea of events are in a system, but it definitely looks like a Kubernetes specific thing. Do you know anything about it?
That's the one I use the least, so I'm not really equipped to talk much about it, to be honest.
Yeah, but that's okay. I'm guessing it's the newest one because I had not really heard of it until recently. It's got some interesting ideas here on basically turning it into like a bot, like turning your Kubernetes into, like, instead of using like Zapier, which is what I use for normal, like one system talking to another when I don't have when I don't want to have to develop it myself. I'm going to guess that maybe this is that kind of idea that I can plug into different endpoints and then automate things on Kubernetes, but I don't actually know. So let's get into the actual Argo CD, which was when I asked you to be back on the show, or when I think you asked me actually, and we were talking about because we could talk about, we've already covered 10 topics that we could talk about for an hour. But talking about CD, so in this Argo CD, what does the CD stand for you, or what does it officially?
So within the context of Argo CD, it's not Argo CD. If my description of Argo CD, it is a way to deploy your applications following GitOps principles, meaning you store a definition of something in Git, it just happens there, right? It's a deployment mechanism. Call it GitOps friendly, right? Now, for something to be CD, from my perspective, for you to deploy something, you need to build that something. You need to create a release. You need to test something, and so on and so forth. So I see at least continuous delivery or CD as a full life cycle of application that starts with a push to a Git repository and ends, and this is now a tricky part, ends with having a release that is deployable to production or a release that is deployed to production. And this is the slight difference between deployment and delivery and deployment, continuous delivery, continuous deployment, right? But the difference is in that button. Do you push a button to deploy to production or it just gets deployed?
Is it automated? Yeah. And for those that are asking, because sorry, go ahead.
No, and then Argo is a piece of that puzzle. At least I see it as a piece of that puzzle that when you get to the point in your let's call it pipeline, right? CD pipeline, that you say, hey, I want this to run in staging, or I want this to run in production. Normally, what the first instinct of everybody, and that was my instinct for a long time, was, hey, so this is the moment where I should execute kubectl something, or Helm something, or SSH, and right? Your instinct tells you now I should execute a command that deploys that something.
Right.
While with Argo, your job is not to actually execute that command. Your job is to create a pull request or a push directly to a Git repository that defines that production environment and say, hey, the tag of this application should now be that, the one that I just built and tested.
Right. And that's, I mean, this is all based on GitOps principles. So we had this question. This is maybe part of the challenge is we're not necessarily defining GitOps and distinguishing the difference between that and what we used before. Because a great question that we just got was from Method Man. What is the difference between Argo and Helm?
So the major difference would be that. So Helm serves two purposes. One is to define what your application is, right? Oh, there will be the template for the deployment, for the service, for ingress, for this and that, right? So it provides a templating solution. And then you can execute commands like Helm install or Helm upgrade to convert those templates into requests to Kubernetes to create the objects based on those templates. So two main purposes. Now, Argo doesn't care about the first purpose. You can use Argo CD with Helm definitions, or with customize, or with pure Kubernetes YAML, JSONnet, and what's not. But it takes control of that Helm upgrade command, right? So instead of you executing command, hey, I want to Helm install this, Argo CD is doing that for you. And there are many benefits from that. First of all, because it forces you to push that change into Git, right? You're forced to do that.
Right.
Second is that you do not need access to that cluster anymore. And this is something that people don't talk much about when they talk of those concepts, but to me, that might be the most important thing. I do not need to have access to my production cluster. And that is amazing. Now, in the past, when somebody says you don't need to have access to production cluster, I had desire to kill that person, because that meant that, hey, I would need to wait 3 weeks until something happens, because I would need to open 17 Jira tickets and what's not. Mm-hmm. But in this case, you can still do everything you're doing. It's just that not by directly communicating with your destination, but by changing the desired state in Git.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Helm doesn't care how you deploy it, right? It has its own templating. It's designed to, use that templating when you want something more than what Kubernetes YAML does out of the box. And Argo CD doesn't have a format. It's not a CI standard or something like that. It's all about creating Git as that single source of truth for every release. So the goal, really one of the big goals of GitOps is, at least for me, is that anyone in my team or anyone who has access to that Git repo can see every change we've made in production by going to the Git log. And that's a huge power. If you've ever worked in a large team or had what I would say management that loves to get into the weeds with you and wants to be able to see things, they always want dashboards. They always want, they want to see what's changing. And a lot of us, it's just hard to even know what's changed, right? What has changed in my production? What's changed with my cluster infrastructure? What's changed with my applications? And that's really hard to do. Obviously, you can do code repos, but it's really hard for people to go, okay, well, which one is in production? Which version is in staging? Well, GitOps tries to solve all those problems by saying Git is it. That's the place where all of these things are happening. So if you want to change something in production, or if you even want to change your infrastructure by adding nodes or whatever, all this can be done in Git. And then you need some sort of controller or some sort of program that's watching Git, seeing the changes and understanding the difference between that and what's real, whether that's the infrastructure, the applications that are running, whatever. And then it makes those changes on your behalf, right? So GitOps is a relatively generic term, and it doesn't have to be Git, right? It could be some other form of versioning system, but we're all using Git. Come on.
Exactly.
I could use HGOps, but that doesn't really roll off the tongue very well. So I think that for those of us that are looking at now, another thing I'll say real quick is that GitOps has primarily showed up. It was a term coined by Weave, 3 years ago, and GitOps has largely only been implemented in the world of Git versioning system because that's what most people are using, especially in open source now. And 2, Kubernetes. So it's possible to do it with other infrastructure. There's nothing inherently unique. So a lot of people will ask me, well, what about Swarm? Because Swarm do GitOps? Well, anything could do GitOps if you have a GitOps controller that's automating. You don't even need to buy a tool or get a tool. You could write something that's monitoring GitOps for Git, for changes and then implementing it. So
I would go even as far, it doesn't even have to monitor Git for changes. You can create a webhook from Git to notify the tool. It can be the other direction. The real goal is, hey, you are defining the state and storing that in Git. And automatically, one way or another, by pushing, by pulling, by gremlins working in your cluster, that happens to become the actual state.
Yeah, and I think, thank you so much for clearing that up. And I think that the Weave team that were on the show last year said it really great. I think they say this in a blog post, that if I can still kube control apply on the server, then I'm not really doing GitOps. Because the idea is, like you said earlier, like GitOps, the idea here is that I'm implementing change through Git, not through server commands. So if I roll out something and it changes the server and then something is problematic and I need to roll out a different version, I'm doing that in Git. Either I'm doing, I'm taking another branch and merging it, or I'm doing some sort of Git operation that will make that latest commit be be pushed or whatever you need to do on the servers, right? Isn't that?
Yeah, and let me give you one reason that you might not have heard often before.
Okay.
And you do all that because you're a team player. Because, when you go to a server and then execute random commands, or you go through some UIs and accomplish certain things by clicking buttons, nobody knows who did what. Right. And I'm not saying who did what from the perspective of policemen, right, trying to catch you doing something bad. But we work as a team. And the best way that I know of today to work as a team is to have everything available to everybody. And we do that, engineers do that through code and pull requests and code reviews and all the good stuff, right? So to me, that's about working in a team.
Yeah, and this kind of sorry, I was going
No,
to
go
say that
ahead.
this kind of evolved out of us all being able to operate on consistent experiences like GitHub and Bitbucket, like GitLab and whatnot. We this a lot of us were doing this before it was GitOps, right? We were continually trying to automate our tooling and because there was a decade ago or something when infrastructure as code started happening and DevOps was starting to get some traction that a lot of us that were in infrastructure were like, well, hey, I'm just going to start putting all of our infrastructure crap in Git, like whatever other system we have, like we're not going to use that, or like CloudFormation, which back in the day wasn't even YAML, it was JSON. Back before we were using Terraform, we were using CloudFormation. And it was like, okay, we're going to track. CloudFormation is crazy. There's a ton of it. We're going to put it in Git and track all changes in Git, like the developers do for their code. And I remember we were actually training like new operators and sysadmins that were not developers, right? We were having to teach them Git because we wanted them to use this to version instead of some ticketing system or you name it, a wiki, like just random things out there that were all storing configuration data or just screenshots sometimes. Like if it was on Windows, it was a screenshot that said, click this button. This is what we did. There was a day where we were using, there's not long ago, maybe a decade, 12 to 13 years ago, something like that, 2005, 2008. We were using SharePoint to document, writing down what we changed in production. And it never failed, right? I don't know if you were doing that, but it never failed that someone would forget. Someone would always forget. And so we were like, great. But, this whole thing's thrown out the window because a human forgot to add that step to the process. So this is the output of that, is that humans suck. We will forget. Even automated systems that we were tracking all the different tooling. There were some systems out there that would try to track, all your shell history, any changes to any of the tools on the server, and it would log all this stuff elsewhere so that you could look at this log of change. But it's always going to forget a tool. There's always going to be a tool that it missed or some change that happened without it knowing. Yeah. So this is, like you said, this is the best I've seen. And you had some thoughts there, I know.
No, I thought, shall I do the demo and show how it looks?
We probably should do a demo. Let me make sure we have some questions. We don't have any questions that are relative.
Yeah, I haven't been checking questions. If there is any, put it on the screen, and I can answer whatever there is, or you.
Let's see. Well, the tool I'm using actually is bringing in them from 3 different places: Twitch, YouTube, and Periscope. So let's see. Unfortunately, I can't put it on screen. Pelin, I see your question on test-driven development, but we're not talking about that right now, so we'll maybe have time for that at the end of the show. Would you recommend keeping everything in Git and set up CI/CD even for configuration of machines? For example, GitLab runner doing swarm deployments, but also running Ansible playbooks for node hosts.
Yeah, I mean.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Short answer, yes. If it's code, it's in Git.
Yeah. If I would argue that just put everything in Git, everything that you can in Git that's related to infrastructure.
If I can just clarify my previous statement when I said if it's code, it's in Git. When I say code, I mean if it's something that is interpreted by machines. YAML, still code. Maven scripts, still code.
Markdown.
If it's interpreted by machine, Markdown, yes, still code. All that is code, it's in Git.
Yeah, and I think that once you start creating a consistency around Git, and people know that they can start looking at the Git logs for infrastructure, for which applications are running in which environments. Each branch might be its own environment, and so you can just swap branches and see what, there are entire systems that I've seen companies build simply to answer the question for the teams, what is running where, right? Like what's in our dev, what's in our prod, what's in our staging, what's in our, we have customer A over here, customer B over here, what versions are they running? Git can do all of that without any additional extra functionality. I wouldn't be surprised, and we're starting to see this over the next 5-10 years, that Git becomes this foundational repository for all the workflows that all these tools are already using. But what I'm noticing today is that we're still like in the super basic beginnings of this because, for example, there are a lot of GUIs, great GUIs, like, AWS has a GUI, right? When I do CloudFormation, what I really want out, or whether it's Terraform or whatever in front of it, but eventually it's converted into APIs on AWS. What I really want is I want the repo, and I'm going to get to the question from Six Corners here that's related to this, is when I decide I'm going to do infrastructure as code, I want that infrastructure GUI management system to be smart enough to know that, and that I can now edit things in the GUI, and it will then provide me a workflow to change the code, right? So like if I'm editing CloudFormation on my command line, or I'm editing CloudFormation through clicking in the GUI, it's still the same workflow. Imagine in AWS where if I say I want to scale up the number of replicas, and then I click a button, and then it takes me to basically a Git workflow. It's like, okay, you just did that in the GUI. Now we're going to make a PR for that. Here's what the changes are going to look like. We're going to commit it to the GitHub repo or whatever repo. You know what I mean? Because there's so many tools that are touching this stuff from different places, and we're not getting consensus. But I expect that to change. I really do think that once we realize how much better this Git-based PR and commit approach is to all changes, not just code changes, I think a lot of these tools are going to have that. Anyway, that's my theory.
I hope so, at least.
Terraform Cloud, which is very basic, but it's essentially just an automated way to apply your Terraform through Git. I've wanted them to have a GUI in front of it for a while now that then will make the changes to Git for me, so that like if I'm on my iPad and I need to make a change to production and I don't want to have to go into a shell and edit a YAML file, that I can just do it in the already existing GUIs that some of these apps have, and then it just saves it to Git. But nobody's really doing a lot of that yet. So
that's the thing. I've been very negative towards UIs. And the main reason that I'm negative is precisely because when I do something in a UI and then it performs action and changes the state of something, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not really against UIs as UIs. I'm against what they traditionally do.
Right.
If it would commit my change to Git and then perform the action to whichever action is doing right now, I would be fine.
Right.
I'm just against not knowing what's going on.
Right, because it's out of band, right? It's a change that's not tracked in the same system you're tracking all your other changes in.
Exactly.
And I think that's what every GUI right now that I use, that I know of, has that foundational limitation of I either have to change things in code and use infrastructure as code, or I have to use the GUI. But if I do both, I'm screwing myself. Like it's going to wreck my systems and ruin my day.
Yeah, because fundamentally, using UI is not different from me using Visual Studio Code. It's a UI.
Yeah.
It's just that this one is local on my laptop, and it would be nice if it's remote. But
yeah, someday.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Someday. So Six Corners asks a related question. Does Argo put any state back into Git? Will Argo update images if the Git repo doesn't change, but the tag changes in Docker Hub?
No. Argo
it's
CD.
Two questions. Yeah, it's two questions actually.
Argo CD assumes that you or some tool, something that is not Argo CD, is going to change the desired state in Git.
Right.
Whether you build images before that, whether you push it manually, change to Git, or through some CI/CD tool, or this or that, Argo doesn't care about that. All it does is monitors your Git repository, and when there is a drift between what is in Git and what is the actual state, it will converge the two. So it will never push something to Git because it's not changing the desired state. It is converging the actual state into the desired state, and you are in control of that desired state.
Right. I think Flux has a feature that if you tell it to be image based, not commit based, and you can give it a parameter and say like anything with the simver 2.1 dot something like you would put in npm or any simver, um, and then so it technically in Flux it would it would watch Git for changes, but specifically for application images, you wouldn't have to change Git. You could just have your CI tool or whatever you're using automatically deploy after the test update. It would push to your registry,
Yeah.
and then Flux will watch that, and then I believe it has a feature to change the Git.
Git.
Yeah, to reflect the new image version. Is there nothing like that with Argo?
Yeah.
I
No,
know I know Flux better than Argo.
there isn't. And personally, I think it's conceptually wrong because I'm not sure that I like the idea of changing the actual state and then saying, hey, by the way, that is the desired state. Kind of conceptually, I'm not sure I like that direction.
Yeah.
Because it's almost upside down. It's kind of acknowledging that what you want is actually what there is, instead of there should be what I want.
Yeah, well, it's not. I agree with what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying. It's not waiting until after Kubernetes does anything, because it's not talking like only thing that talks to Kubernetes is Flux. I think really what it is on Flux is that they have an extra feature, and it's probably for other
Yeah.
tools. It's just it would be a separate tool that would do this, but essentially it's watching for webhooks from new images that match a particular whether it's
Button.
simver or date based or whatever your regex is. Basically, it's following a regex, and if it sees a new image with a matches the regex based on a rule you put in the Git repo, it will then update the repo automatically as a bot. So it's essentially automatically updating YAML, and then that YAML will, and then it will its own engine. I'm hope I'm getting this right. Its own engine will then take that and do the kube control apply. Essentially, it'll use the controller to talk to the Kubernetes API. But you're right. If you get those out of order, then because your state on the server may not have been successful, right? So how that's a lot of.
And you just mentioned one of my personal biggest pain points of GitOps is that there are so many things that are changing the state of. So you mentioned earlier when you were going through Argo rollouts, canary deployments, right? Canary deployments could fail, and then the system will roll back. So far, so good. I want it to roll back when there is something terribly wrong, right? But it completely breaks the whole concept of GitOps, because the moment my new release rolls back to the previous release, I have no idea what is the state. I mean, of course, I know by doing kubectl and stuff like that, but
right.
Any single from there on, my changes to Git will produce unknown results.
Right, it's divergent. Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's also true for auto scaling, right? That's true for auto scaling failures, or rolling failures. I'm trying to think what the other one was. I feel like there was 3, but I know for me it's a lot of it's auto scaling. Like if you scale up to 10 but your YAML is still written to say 2 replicas, when you deploy a new release, it'll scale that deployment down to 2 services when it actually needs 10 because the production servers. So I guess that's the challenge of GitOps, is we probably are going to end up needing multiple features either built into the product or multiple ways to add extra plugins or something, or our own automation that will consider these things like auto rollbacks, auto scaling, things that because Kubernetes is designed to do things automatically. So if it does these various things that it can do without Git being aware, it's going to come back to haunt us later. And does Argo have anything like that you know of?
No, really, at the moment. So Argo CD is just doing deployments, right? It's not concerned about the other direction. There is Argo rollouts, which does progressive delivery. And there is a discussion actually going on for a while how to combine the two, because independently they're awesome, but they're not really compatible.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
because of that rollback, for example. Or let's say if I do canary deployments and I do 20% rollout for a full day because I really want to see how my users react, right? And that's not an uncommon scenario. What should be the state in my Git? Is it a fully new release? Is it those 20%? Is it the old release?
Yeah.
I'm throwing things that I have no answers. I think that we are
Yeah.
at the very beginning of trying to kind of figure out those things. How do we answer those questions?
Yeah, and specifically for, I mean, because this conversation is narrowed to Kubernetes, right? Because Argo and Flux are both very Kubernetes specific. Not that GitOps is, but these tools that are coming out are all focused on Kubernetes. So one would think that eventually this is going to turn into either features in the product, like Flux has done with the watching of images, because maybe, for example, I had a client. They actually implemented Flux. They're a solo developer, right? They're only one person, so and they're already doing Kubernetes, so they're already overworked, right? They already got too much infrastructure, too much stuff. They got to develop the app, then they have to deploy they have to manage the infrastructure, they have to do all these things. So for reasons, they had to stick with EKS. Sorry,
EKS.
my brain. Yeah, he had to. So at least EKS was provisioning. They weren't able to do Fargate yet, but they had EKS, so that part's a little bit easier. And then I said, well, let's look at automating with Flux. Let's see how easy we can get you to that. And they're still using a different CI tool, right? They have their own separate CI tool for testing. And I think actually in his case, he might just be, because he's one person, testing it locally. Like he's not using an automated testing solution. He's just doing NPM run tests on his local machine. That's fine if he wants to do that. Like no one else is going to complain that he's not running tests for the team because he's a team of one. So he has a workflow where he can do the Docker compose, he can do the test, and he can do like a Docker push after the build, or the Docker compose build, Docker compose push kind of thing. I think he does have now, I think about it, he might have like Docker Hub building his tests or building his images for him. Anyway, the point is that once his tests were successful, an image went to Docker Hub. What he didn't want to have to do is either go hand edit YAML for every new release that goes to production, which is fair.
Mm-hmm.
And he also didn't want to have to, because he liked the idea of Flux and GitOps, but he didn't want to have to hand edit YAML. And so he was thinking, well, do I have my CI tool now do a regex or like a file parsing of YAML to pull out the image tag and then change it and then commit it in an automated fashion, which would basically be him writing, some Linux commands or some script to do that.
Set.
Yeah, set or awk, right? So he was like, should I do that? But then I actually asked someone from the Flux team, and they said, no, there's actually this feature built in that will do it. So he was able to do it with a sort of adding one line into his Flux YAML, or maybe a couple of lines.
Correct.
And I thought that was way more elegant than him having to create his own tool to edit YAML on the fly. So I'm not sure, like, that's the way Flux does it. I like it. I'm not sure if there is a better way, but overall, the idea of automating it without having to, who wants to write another command script, workflow step of editing YAML for every little thing? I don't know. I go back and forth.
So it's, there is always the answer that starts with depends.
Right.
Now, the downside of that is that you need to use Flux format. And the upside of not that is that you can use any format, like, Helm or JSONNet or customize or whatever you want, right? And I think that's the major reason why something like that doesn't exist in Argo CD, simply because they kind of like did not try to enforce a certain format for storing the information about what is running where, which from user perspective could be considered kind of like not friendly, right? On the other hand, from transitioning to something like that, it could be friendly because you already have a lot of investment in your Helm or JSON.NET or this or that.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
but ultimately, and now I'm going back to the years where we met. I'm lacking that simplicity that we got with Docker, right? Kind of, it
Right.
just all bloody worked.
Yeah.
I'm yet to find a company that gets to that level of user experience. That hey, you don't need to write 75 lines of script to change a YAML
Yeah.
tag.
Right. Yeah. I mean, having at least some templates that would automate all these things so that, I mean, at the end of the day, there are people that will never be comfortable with fully automated. But for small projects, like personal projects, I would love, without using Heroku, because that's cheating, because they've been doing it for 10 years. I would love to be able to know that whatever I create, as long as I got a Kubernetes cluster and a Kubernetes endpoint, whatever I commit to, it's going to be deployed there, and it's going to be GitOps based, and I don't have to edit multiple things. I just edit my code. I trust my test process. I trust it's going to do all that, and then I don't have to put together 5 different tools and run them all on a separate infrastructure because I don't want them to be on my production infrastructure. Like, it just, yeah, it starts to get so. It's why consultants love being I mean, that's why consultants exist, is because no one can figure this crap out, and no one tool does it all. Or if they do, the problem is they're not great at anything because they do everything. And for those of us that I think that if we've drank the Kool-Aid of containers and automation and DevOps, we kind of would really just, like, maybe this GitOps will eventually result in these tools that do this, where I literally tell them, here's my GitOps repo, or here's my GitHub repo. Okay, where's your GitOps repo? This is my GitOps repo. Okay, great. Here's a GUI. Do all the things you want in the GUI, and we're going to GitOps everything for you. And, you don't even have to touch code. You don't even have to open up Vim because you're going to be on your phone, changing production with your phone browser or something.
But that will never happen.
It's never going to happen?
Yeah, and let me explain why. Because those specific cases, yes, we're going to get there, right? And it will be like that. And what will happen after that? That our expectations will change yet again. And then actually we will want more. And to get that more, we will have to do the things that we just thought that we escaped.
Okay.
So
we're chasing a dragon. That's what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, because do you remember how many promises we had when VMs appeared? And actually, those promises were fulfilled. But our expectations are not the same anymore.
It's a new problem. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, Docker created the new problem of now it's really easy to make them reliable and deployable. Now we just need it to be automated. But that Docker's like, no, we're not going to do all that.
Like, I'm very excited about. I mean, there are many projects I'm excited about, but one of the projects I'm excited about is Google Cloud Run, right? Which is basically allowing you to run your applications without much fuss. There is no connection to Kubernetes from user perspective, yet Kubernetes is running behind the scenes. But for you as a user, you just, hey, here's my image, scale it up, scale it down, depending on how much traffic I have, and just do the thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's awesome, right? Now, and I'm using it to be honest for quite a few projects, and I don't get commission from them, so this is not a sales pitch. But it's awesome, right? And then, but the expectations will change again, and then this will not be enough for me, right? But it does simplify things.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so questions. Let's do some rapid fire real quick because we've already started talking an hour. Method Man, and some of these questions may have already been answered, but we're just going to put them on here for the sake of the audio podcast. Method Man asks, so Argo CD ensures the state of the cluster and apps hosted on the cluster versus Helm is only used for application templating? Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yes. I would say that Helm, primary purpose of Helm is to define a manifest of an application, while the purpose of Argo CD is to apply that manifest. Now Helm can apply it as well, but that's not its primary purpose.
Right. And I don't know that Helm approaches this from a GitOps perspective.
No, I mean, depends. I mean, look, if I store Helm chart in a Git repo, and then I execute that chart from that, execute Helm upgrade, Helm install based on the chart from that repo. Doesn't matter whether that's from CI, from CD, from a terminal, but I'm effectively doing GitOps, right? I'm effectively applying something defined in Git. So I would say yes.
Right.
I think that I have maybe a broader definition of what GitOps is. To me, is if it's in Git and then it gets applied to the cluster, it's GitOps.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the Weave guys was saying that. What do they call it? They don't call that GitOps. They call that infrastructure automation or infrastructure as code. But if you're having to apply it to the server, because the problem is that, let's say you commit to Git and then you go to lunch and you didn't apply it to the server. So Git is now out of sync from the server.
Exactly.
Yeah, and there's no way for anyone to know that. Whereas if it's fully automated from the moment you put it, like if you're going to put this in the master branch and the GitOps repo, let's just assume the repo is called GitOps, then everyone can, if it's fully automated, they can all look at that and go, I assume this is what's in production. Pending some problem with the deployment or some other variance. But people can look at it and assume. Otherwise, if there's a human process involved, then it's almost like, do I commit to Git after I've deployed it, before I deploy it, only within 5 minutes of my deployment? Like, it gets kind of weird on whether I can trust Git to be the actual thing that's in production.
Let's put it this way. I don't trust humans to do any repetitive tasks, period.
Yeah.
Kind of, we're not good at that.
Yeah. No, we aren't. And, being someone who's, making a course, one thing is about making a training course, there's a ton of processes, like ton of human workflows. We're always trying to automate them because no matter how much we document them, we suck at getting them right every time the same way. Every video needs to sound the same, look the same, have the same volume, same intro, same outro, same colors in the little pop-ups that tell you things. Like, there's all that stuff, and it's same closed captioning quality. Like, there's so many processes there, and I can tell you from the last 3 years is one thing that is really hard for us is if we can't automate it, it's probably going to not be perfect because we're gonna forget it on some videos. When you ship a course with 100 videos, it's really hard to make all 100 videos exactly the same consistent experience. And even when you automate it, it's sometimes it's still really hard. All right, some more rapid fire questions because I want to get through these. How to test an artifact in GitOps? We have different software testing methodologies like functional and non-functional. I would say that's has nothing to do with GitOps. GitOps is after that. Would you agree? Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if you can.
I mean, I will assume that you keep your tests in Git, and I would like to distinguish. There is life cycle of an application, right? And that life cycle has many things, building, testing, and stuff like that. And this is just part of your life cycle of your application.
Yeah, but it doesn't. GitOps doesn't change the way you're testing.
No.
I would say that the more you automate, the more you need to test. But you can do automation without GitOps, and you can do
Yeah.
Okay. Next, at what point would you advise switching to Argo from, example, Azure DevOps, assuming that there is no manual intervention in a K8 cluster?
I don't think it would be switching. So you have Azure DevOps that is your pipeline, right? Basically, a set of tasks executed under certain conditions, and you might just want to modify it so that instead of Azure DevOps executing kubectl or whatever you're executing to apply, let it go back to Git. Doesn't matter which tool you use. It could be you using sed, what we commented before, or with Flux, or with this, or with that. Doesn't matter. But the ultimate goal is that you don't deploy from your Azure DevOps. You modify the state, desired state in Git, saying,
Right.
I want this release to be in production or in staging. Expression
Right.
of a desire.
How do you recommend handling the secrets from Git to keep the credentials hidden? Well, first off, I'll say that is not a GitOps related thing. Well, he said Git. Sorry, Santiago. You said, how do you handle secrets in Git? So slightly related question. If you're new to putting your infrastructure in Git, this is definitely a topic. There's some answers in chat. A couple people in chat said sealed secrets. I like sealed secrets. I don't know if you've ever used that.
For example, yeah.
Yeah. You can use the cloud secret provider. You can use Kubernetes secret provider. You can use Vault.
It does not necessarily have to be in Git, really. Reference of it. Like the same thing, like my application is not in Git, just as my secrets are not in Git. References to my application, to container image, are in Git. Right? The source of truth is I want to use this specific tag of this specific image. The same thing can be for secrets, right? They can be encrypted one way or another in Git, or it can be referenced. Hey, use this secret from Vault. That's perfectly fine.
Right. And yeah, references to secrets are fine because it's not the secret, so it's fine. You can have that in a public repo. Sealed secrets is a way to basically encrypt the secret so that the only way to decrypt it is to put it on the cluster. And that's a way in open source for us to now put secrets in there in public and not have to sweat it, not have to break the rules of you never should put secrets in Git repos, you know? Oh, by the way, I want to thank Niels. Hopefully I pronounced that right. I got a super sticker.
Hey! Well done, Niels.
Yeah, he gets the air horn sound, which unfortunately Victor cannot hear, but I don't get very many super stickers, so thank you so much for supporting this channel. That was a very exciting post right there. What's next up? All right, let's see. So sealed secrets, got the secrets thing for Santiago there. Best practices for GitOps. Well, I think we're kind of talking about all those, so I'm going to assume that we're answering that question. If you're on Azure, look at Azure Arc. It uses Flux. Did not know that. Thank you, Martin. Azure Arc. We have some disdain for Jenkins. I don't know what it is. Let's see, what else? Merlos secrets are really... Oh, sorry. Biker's answering. Secrets are really the domain of orchestrator like K8s or Swarm and external tools like Vault encryption at the rest. Yeah, yep.
Exactly.
Yep. So Git is not the right place to store secrets. Yes, that's a great response. Thank you for that. Here's some Git, something Vault. Yeah, I think Santiago answered his questions. Yeah, sealed secrets. That's the latest trend, is the sealed secrets idea of basically using standard PKI approach of things are encrypted with a secret so that the thing can be in public, just like we'd use all TLS and SSL every day. That's the same kind of PKI approach. Oh boy, we're on a trend today. Santiago's now giving a super sticker.
Well done, Santiago.
All right. Great. You know, I always watch all those Twitch channels where everybody's buying them coins or whatever, and I'm like, that must be nice. So thank you for those breaking the ice today with some of the donations. I really appreciate it. And sadly, Victor will get none of it. So he's doing this for free.
Next time I'm in Cabrillos, I'm gonna ping Santiago and have coffee with him.
Oh, nice.
My treat.
Yes, and of course, I'm sure over on the DevOps Toolkit channel, you can go over there, and if you're just joining us, I've got Victor on, and he's got his own channel where he's doing some really cool discussions. I like how he goes in depth. He spends 20 minutes really, talking about a topic, going deep on it, and it's well done. And he's got good quality hardware, and his production is nice. He's got some what's the music you have in the background? That's that genre of
I don't know.
dubstep. You got some dubstep in the background.
Yeah, I think so.
Some nice hard dubstep in there. That's nice.
Can I give free stuff on the channel?
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
I mean, if people are hanging around this long, let's give them some free stuff.
I didn't think about it. I'm not prepared. I don't know. First three that post a comment, give me free stuff, get the book. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So put it in chat, everybody. If you want something free, if you want a free book, put it in chat.
Yeah, and I will. Bret, you just need to send me somehow contact. I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
Email or something.
What if we tell them to just can they send you a tweet?
Yeah, send me a tweet. Give me free stuff. First three get the book.
All right, you heard it.
Of your choice. Any of the books that I have.
All right, so I'm going to give you his Twitter link. So, here's his Twitter link. Go over to Twitter, and you have to send him a public tweet. It can't be a DM. It has to be in public.
Okay, you're changing the rules. Good. Okay.
Public. Yeah, it has to be in public. And he'll give away some free books. So in case you don't know what his books are, you can go over to his website. He's got, like a bunch. There's the DevOps Toolkit. There's all these different ones. There's 2.6, 2.3. I mean, how many books do you have at this point? A dozen?
I have no idea. I honestly have no idea.
Yeah, he's got lots of them. I mean, he's got so many that he doesn't even make a list on his website. He's like, forget it. Forget making a list.
No, because I don't even know which ones I removed, because some become tech changes and then some become obsolete, deprecated, and then I remove them. I don't know. Anyway.
I didn't know you had courses on Udemy. You have courses on Udemy?
Yeah, I do.
Nice.
Yeah. And this is the last one is actually, I was experimenting before, but the last one is the one I want. That's the one I commented before the show. It's like never ending. I just keep adding stuff there. Whatever I find, I add it there. It's a collection of
DevOps
stuff.
Is this the DevOps catalog?
Yeah.
Oh man. DevOps catalog, patterns, and blueprints. This is perfect. We were just talking about this. All right, people.
The last one I added was Argo. That's why I keep it in my head. And the worst thing is that people ask me, okay, so can you tell me what else will be there so that I make a decision? I have no idea.
Look at all this stuff. 11 hours of videos. All right, people. You know what to do. Put on my wish list.
I watched your course. I'm a very beginner style compared to yours, and I'm not trying to flatter. I'm really impressed. So if you're gonna put something on a screen, you should put yours, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I haven't done this yet, so and plus, everybody has their own style. Everybody, I feel like the world's big enough that we can all have our own little sandbox, and everybody's a frenemy to me. We all might compete in some way for time and content, but as far as I'm concerned, the more people, the better. And the more courses, the better. It's all good. As long as I can make a living and pay my bills, it's all good. All right. So, so people are saying, me too, free stuff. All right. Sorry for the tease, but you're going to have to go over to Twitter. Those of you that are already on Periscope, you have the advantage because you're already over there on Twitter. So all these people, free stuff. Box of Ninjas says, I have the DevOps Toolkit books 2 and 2.1.
Those are... You're obsolete, man.
And then great books, Victor, says Martin. Do you have a promo code to buy the course on Udemy?
Ping me.
So ping him on Twitter. He's available there. If you want, I don't know if you're asking for Victor's courses or my courses, but here's a tip to Victor if he wants to do the work. You have to do it every month. But what I do is, and I don't know why this is funny. This has happened the last couple of months. It's like my images only in Chrome for my website don't show up. I don't know. Something about Chrome doesn't like my website. Anyway, I have my courses over. All the coupons are updated monthly, so you basically get the cheapest coupon that Udemy will let me create every month, and I update those coupons every month with the cheapest sale price. So it's somewhere between 12 and 15 American dollars. So you can get all my courses there. If you want Victor, he'll help you out on Twitter. By the way, I get a lot of hits, Victor. I mean, you get a lot of people to your website just by putting the links to these. You know, you make more of the percentage of the money because it's your coupon versus others. I learned that years ago, and I'm so glad I did it because I actually get a little bit more of the money. Normally, Udemy doesn't give you a lot of the money. So, yeah. Oh, and Niels came back with another super chat. What is happening?
Hey, let's not stop this ever.
Oh my goodness! If only you could hear the air horn that I've got in there, the reggae air horn. And Santiago says, "Yeah, I already got your course, and I need a promo code for Victor's courses." Okay, perfect. Then yeah, so do that over at on Twitter. Just reach out to him on
Twitter. As Bret said, it's just that I'm more lazy than Bret, so I don't create those I forget to create promo codes. I have the generic one that is slightly worse. Anyway, ping me.
It is effort because they only last for up to maximum of 30 days. It's a tedious process, especially when you have multiple courses, and it's a thing. So cool. Well, I don't think we need to do demos because I think we covered this, and we've been going almost an hour and a half now. So I think people, I mean, there are demos of Argo on Netflix on YouTube, and in his course. So go buy his course for the demos. They have walkthroughs even on their website. You know, they have little simple things. They have stuff in the manual guides. That's how I first tried to use it, was through their user guides. But he talks about it on his YouTube channel. He talks about it in his Udemy course. So go do that for the demos. I think that you probably got a good sense for what this is all about. Oh my goodness, we are on fire today. Santiago's back. Now I've got to send you some money because these people are donating to you. Okay. And
we're gonna see each other sooner or later when the COVID ends.
I'm gonna have to buy you that beer.
Yeah, buy me coffee. Yeah.
So we actually had this plan, Victor and I, for me coming to Spain, and we were going to do some trips in Spain or in that area, and I was going to come hang out. And then COVID happened, so we'll have to figure that out. What I'm afraid to do, because I have a friend that's actually going to Spain this year, maybe or next year, and I'm afraid to go and then get sick and not be able to come back. That's what I'm actually. Because I mean, it's one thing to get sick, but it's another thing to be stuck. Like you can't.
You could be stuck in a worse place than Barcelona.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah. But I don't know. I haven't checked how well my healthcare will cover me in Spain. So that's also an issue with American healthcare, is it's a crapshoot overseas. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't think twice about it. But right now it's like America might not let me back in.
Hey man, can you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Can I mention my company? Then I did this on company time instead of free time.
Oh, yes. Yeah, so let's just talk about CodeFresh for a second, which is not why he's here, but, CodeFresh is another one of these platforms that's adapting as a CI tool. It's adapting to the DevOps workflows and specifically to the GitOps workflows. So you'll even see them talking about it on their website. Anything you want to say?
No, I think try it out. I can tell you, I work for CodeFresh, so I can tell you that it's awesome because it's awesome and so on and so forth, but then that would be marketing. I'm not going to do that. So try it out. You get unlimited builds for free. Now, there are some features that, like with everybody, you pay later on if you want them, but try it out. It won't cost anything, and then let me know what you think. And ping me at any time if you need any help.
Yeah. I think there's right now in this, we talked about this for the last couple of years, especially like last year, 2019 DockerCon, is that the CI and CD space is where a lot of the innovation is happening right now. We kind of figured out containers. We've kind of at least got the current iteration of what orchestration means. And now we're trying to figure out that piece in the middle. So I would say that there's a lot of players in that market, but they're all innovating in different ways. So if we all already have probably our own way of testing and doing some automation and workflows, but it probably is worth your time to at least try one out every year, a new one every 6 months or something, just to give it a shot. Because I think that there are these new, CodeFresh is a newer option, and it sometimes takes newer players to create that innovation so that the industry can move forward. So yeah. And thank you, CodeFresh, for lending Viktor to us for the afternoon. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. This is not your first time, and it will not be your last on the show. I always enjoy it, and this will be a great podcast for everybody listening in on more GitOps topics on our podcast, which we get now. We're like up to like 15,000 downloads a month or something on that. So there's definitely people listening to it, and they will be educated on Argo and what GitOps is. So thanks to all the super chat out there. Thanks to my Patreon members, my patrons. I thank you so much for your support. It is a big deal that you are consistently supporting me every month with buying me a coffee, essentially, and it helps the whole team here, which is not just me. It's not just Viktor. We've got other people behind the scenes making all this stuff happen. So I really appreciate you, and we will be back here next week with someone. I don't remember who because I didn't write it down. But it won't be Viktor, unfortunately, but he's going to be back. Like this video if you want Viktor to come back, because I make more stuff with the more videos that are liked. Like the videos that get the most traction are the videos that we keep doing over and over again. So if you want to hear more theories on continuous integration and continuous deployment and delivery, please like this video and subscribe to Viktor's channel. We'll see you next week. Ciao, everybody.
Cheers.